In the weeks leading up to Election Day, in-depth moderator Susan Goodell interviewed the two leading candidates for governor, incumbent Kevin Stitt and his Democratic challenger, State Superintendent of Instruction Joy Hoffmeister. Susan addressed the same topics with both candidates. Did the differences in their answers help account for Stitt's large margin of victory? Here's a reminder.
The first question I want to ask you is the easy one. Tell us something about yourself that folks may not know. Let's get to know you.
Well, thank you so much for that. You know, I'm a fourth generation Oklahoman, grew up in Norman, and went to school in Stillwater, met my wife in Tulsa when I got my first job over there, and we've been married for 24 years.
Wow.
And we have 6 children, so big family.
Yeah.
I've got 2 kids in college and 4 still at home. I absolutely love our state, but I love the Western way of life too. So I love riding horses. And an interesting fact I tell people is I can ride a unicycle.
Well, my husband Jerry and I raised our 4 kids right here in Oklahoma, and they're all grown. 3 are married, and we welcomed our first grandbaby just 9 months ago. So we think about all families, but of course, as someone with a granddaughter, you think about the future in a way that most educators do, as we have spent the last almost 8 years focusing on the needs of the 700,000 school kids.
Let's talk about education for a minute. That's one on our list of topics. And you mentioned the surplus funds, which is a good thing. But some have said that, you know, if we have these surplus funds, why aren't we paying our teachers more? Why aren't we investing in our schools more? What say you?
Yeah, so number one, when I first came into office, that was what was happening, was the legislature would spend every dime they had and increase the base level of expenses all across state government. Well, we know that revenue doesn't just always go up in a straight line. So the moment you have a downturn, now you're having to cut and you're having all this chaos in the state capitol. You notice it hasn't been like that for 4 years because we've been fiscally disciplined. And I've put more money in education than any governor in history. We have given our teachers a pay raise. We passed a bill this year called the Redbud Bill to put more money in rural schools. But at the same time, and I've also cut taxes for Oklahomans. So we have to be disciplined and fiscally responsible and invest strategically all across the state.
We did make some gains, but then other states have also raised their pay. So I'm calling for a $5,000 teacher pay raise again. It is time, so that we can at least be the top of the region, but by 2025, I want to see us hit that national average. My goal, though, is to see our neighborhood schools strengthened. Governor Stitt has a voucher scheme, which is a rural school killer. You kill the school, you kill the community, and frankly, it's going to see an impact in health and regional hospitals that would come next. So it's very important that we have high expectations and standards for being competitive and ready for the next steps in learning or the workforce, but you can't do that without great teachers, caring, committed educators who are prepared and well-resourced day one.
I want to speak directly to Oklahomans, especially in rural Oklahoma. The lies and chaos that these special interests have been mailing you flyers saying I'm going to defund your rural school, that's nonsense. Everybody knows that's crazy. I will continue to put more money in education than any other governor in history. The Redbud Bill actually specifically funded more money to rural schools. So it's just chaos. They're twisting it. What we're talking about is in Tulsa, Oklahoma, North Tulsa, South Oklahoma City. If there's schools that are closed down like they were during COVID for 355 days, parents need more options.
My God, let's once and for all fund our schools so that we can have teachers in every classroom that are able then to stay in the profession and give back to the children and keep communities strong. If we don't, I mean, this is my job. As state superintendent, it is to have top choices in neighborhoods all across this state. Some of the best schools we have are in rural Oklahoma. And this governor is risking the dismantling of public education. It is a strong public education that will cause our state to rise in academic performance all across the state.
Our next topic is abortion. I know that's been a big issue in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma has garnered attention in the national spotlight for your stance on abortion, and you've been highly criticized for that stance. Why do you take that stance that you do? And I think everyone knows, but for those who don't, would you explain it?
Yeah, well, first off, I don't think I've been criticized by Oklahomans. I might have been criticized by the liberals on the East Coast or the West Coast, but my opponents won't give an answer. The most extreme position is my opponent's. She's siding more with North Korea and China than Oklahomans, because she will not admit when life begins. They want to abort babies all the way up until birth, which is absolutely unbelievable. And the other lie that people tell you is that the Supreme Court banned abortion in the United States. That's not true. It's simply pushed that back to the states where it belongs, and every state's going to do things differently. And we want to be a pro-life state, and we want to be the state that protects moms, protects babies, is the easiest adoption state. So those are the things that we're working on. But my opponent wants to side with California and New York and Colorado and abort babies all the way up into birth, and that's not where Oklahomans stand.
Do you really think it's that extreme for your main opponent?
Well, yes, because during our TV debate a couple weeks ago, she would not answer when she believes that life begins and when would she stop abortion. What people need to understand is every state's going to do things differently. Some states might do a 15-week ban. France, the country of France, bans abortion between 12 and 14 weeks. Some states are going to do a heartbeat bill at maybe 6 to 8 weeks. So we can have these conversations, but we certainly know that life begins before the moment of birth.
The governor's very extreme abortion ban is a very great concern for many, many Oklahomans. I am personally pro-life, but I have not walked in every woman's shoes. I do not favor extremes on either side of this issue. These are healthcare decisions, medical care decisions that need to be able to be made between a woman and her doctor. And often what we see now today is the governor has shown no mercy for victims of rape or incest. These are extreme measures, and it is driving physicians out of our state due to the criminalization of standard health care.
I believe it was during the debate, after that was pointed out, did he say he would take a look at that if it was put on his desk in the instance of incest or rape to allow abortions in that case? Or
I believe I heard him say that, but my gosh, we are where we are because he invited this extreme bill and signed it.
Yeah.
And now he's going to reverse and say he wants to clean up what he did. This is an assault on women and physicians, and it invites miscarriage bounty hunters at $10,000 fees, pitting neighbor against neighbor. This is bad for Oklahoma.
Should there be a timeline on first trimester, anything after a first trimester, any changes in the abortion laws? Would there be a cutoff, if any, for allowing an abortion?
I believe in some guardrails, and we need to work with medical community and with those that care deeply about the freedom and privacy of medical decisions, but also through the lens that we want to celebrate and protect life.
I want to switch over to the energy sector right now. The economy, as you mentioned in Oklahoma, the foundation is energy in Oklahoma. But these days we're faced with energy versus environment. I know you've spoken to that a little bit in the past. How do you balance that? Is the environment important?
Well, absolutely. And I think, all of our companies are focused on making sure that we do things the right way. We take care of our employees and we take care of our environment. And when I think about Oklahoma, we have reduced our carbon emissions by 3 times the national average just since 2005. And a lot of that is because of clean burning natural gas. But the Biden administration is attacking our way of life in Oklahoma. They're attacking the oil and gas industry. They're taxing it. They're canceling the Keystone Pipeline. They're making it impossible to get new permits in a lot of cases. Here's the problem with that. Demand is the same. We're all still heating our homes and our businesses. We're driving to work and taking our kids to school and football practice and piano lessons. And so when you choke off supply, demand's the same, then prices are going to go up. And that's why we're seeing 40-year highs inflation. We're seeing more things costing more at the grocery store and at the gas pump. Oklahoma does it so well.
What's the answer to that then?
The answer is to unleash and take your thumb off of trying to pick winners and losers. Oklahoma, I brag on Oklahoma when I meet with President Biden and when I meet with their Secretary of Energy. We're number 4 in oil production, number 3 in natural gas in the entire country. But here's what they don't realize. We're number 2 in wind energy production. Oklahoma, we believe in more of everything. We're not afraid of having a conversation about renewables. I'm actually recruiting more. I've signed an MOU with the governor of Arkansas and Louisiana to bring a hydrogen hub here to Oklahoma. So we're not afraid of that. We want more wind, more oil and gas. But the problem is the Biden administration and that party won't have an honest conversation about the need for oil and natural gas, because what their solution isn't working, because they're just simply asking Russia and OPEC to produce more oil. We need to unleash Oklahoma companies.
Energy, more than anything else, defines the quality of life that we have in our communities. We need more energy, not less. And American energy independence is American security and safety. And we know that that also is an incredibly important part of our state's economy. And we want to work to ensure that our businesses right here that employ 90,000 positions all across the state continue to grow and thrive. We should be a leader in the research also about what comes next in the next decades with energy. And today, unfortunately, we've seen that leave our state. We could be answering these questions for the nation with what's next and keep these companies continuing to grow.
What have you seen that is, you said that you've seen it leave the state. Why?
The research that is being done is not in Oklahoma at the level that it is now in other states on some of the East Coast. And that is a concern from leaders in the energy sector that we should be doing that work right here.
First of all, talk about why is it important to have a good relationship with Oklahoma's tribes?
Yeah, well, first off, there is such a big difference between being proud of our heritage and our tribal folks in Oklahoma. I'm actually a tribal member. So is my mom, all 6 of my children, all of my cousins, rodeo and the Indian Rodeo Association. I am so proud of our Native American heritage. And that's part of who we are as Oklahomans. But there's a big difference when they run ads and say that, and they try to confuse the public to say that I don't like Indian tribes. That's not true. But I am pro-Oklahoma, and I will not federalize my state. And the McGirt decision tried to kick Oklahoma out of eastern Oklahoma on law and order, to be able to prosecute crimes the same way. Don't ask me, ask the city of Tulsa and the district attorneys over in the eastern part of the state and the police and the chaos that was ensued. So I'm not going to federalize eastern Oklahoma. We're all one state. We have to have one set of rules regardless of your race or your heritage or where you live. We can't treat different races differently. Again, huge difference between me and my opponent. She said she was for federalizing eastern Oklahoma. She thinks that you should have 2 sets of rules. So she thinks that people with Native heritage don't have to pay taxes, but everybody else should. I fundamentally disagree with that, because it is a statewide issue. We have an equalization. If there's $1 less of tax in the eastern part of the state, that means there's $1 less that goes into schools in the western part of the state.
Stunning endorsement that you received from the 5 civilized tribes. First of all, what did that feel like to you when you learned that this was going to happen?
It is humbling, truly an honor, and it is historic. There is often, there is sometimes even division within the 39 sovereign tribal nations in Oklahoma. What was unprecedented is that we had all of these 5 major tribes and others that have come together to say we want to work together as partners, government to government, with respect for tribal sovereignty.
Now, I don't know whether that'll be easy or difficult, especially with the McGirt situation going on. So if you have a chance to do that, how do you tackle that issue with the tribes?
So there is need for a compact. It could have been established. In fact, the Attorney General at the time had already prepared and done this work, and it does involve the federal government too, to have actually execute a compact. And yet it was needed. This governor burned bridges early on without the respect for tribal sovereignty, and then he was not able to walk over those bridges that he burned. We can find a win-win to make Oklahoma communities safe and to have clear understanding of the cross-deputization or the jurisdiction within these criminal matters, so that this can be something that's very clear, and that we do not have to continue to see a governor who is wasting taxpayer dollars in unwinnable lawsuits that are costing Oklahomans DC lawyer rates at $800 to $1,200 per hour to fight within the state. This is a matter that needs to be settled through compacts with those affected tribes, and I will be at work to do that with the next Attorney General.
We have an issue with crime rate in Oklahoma. How do we get a hold of that? You say we back the blue, you're funding police. What else needs to be done?
Well, first off, we're going to prosecute all bad guys. We're going to be a law and order state. We're going to fund our district attorneys appropriately. And at the same time, when I took over, we were last place in incarceration rates in Oklahoma. We've moved the needle. I've actually closed down 2 private prisons. We are number 1 in the country right now in lowest recidivism rate. That means people going back into prison. We're leading the country in fewer people going back into prison. So we've done some great policy items to do some second chances. Again, this is where my opponent tried to make this an issue. And at the same time, we will be in law and order state. If you notice, I give all of our law and order all the tools they need, all the district attorneys, everything they need to make sure that we lock up the people that we're afraid of, and we give second chances to people that maybe we're just mad at.
Well, first of all, we have to face facts, and we need to stay on top of data and not ignore it. As you saw our governor scoff at the facts. It is under his watch that we have a cannabis, medical marijuana industry that has bad actors, that this was on the ballot, the people spoke at the same time he was elected, and yet he did not step into office and address the need to keep our communities safe. We do have communities, and I was in a diner in a rural Oklahoma community and asked some DEA agents that were having coffee there next to me, and I asked, is it true what we hear about Chinese and Russian mafia being here because of unchecked regulation and laws that have not been put in place timely? And they agreed, yes, it is true. We are battling an out of control medical marijuana bad growers. There are good growers that need to be protected, but we know that this is also a governor that on his watch and tied to crime is the sale also of more foreign-owned, in fact 1.5 million acres of foreign-owned and interest land here in Oklahoma as well. It all is part of how do we protect rural Oklahoma, and it is a key part of my focus.
I want to talk about polling. Everyone is watching the polls in this race, and I think nationally, everyone's watching the polls in every race because this is such a big issue for America. So what do you think of the polls that have your main opponent, Democrat Joy Hoffmeister, creeping up on you or even being ahead of you in the polls?
You know, the great thing about this is we're all going to know on November 8th because it'll be up to the Oklahomans to vote. I believe that I stand where Oklahomans stand. We do not want to go backwards. The turnaround that Oklahomans elected me to do 4 years ago, it's working. And I believe that Oklahomans overwhelmingly will support me on Election Day. So I don't put much credence in polls. I don't poll before I make decisions for Oklahomans. I know what Oklahomans are thinking and what we want for our state. We want to be a top 10 state in everything we do. We believe in smaller government, lower taxes, traditional family values. So that's how I'm going to lead, and I look forward to putting it out there. That's why I love these programs, showing the difference between me and my opponent. And then I'm happy with whatever Oklahoma decides.
Well, when it comes to polling, some people talk about transparency. They feel like there's a lack of transparency, and there's been some criticism of some of the dealings they see from the governor's office. Would you like to address that?
Here's the deal. We've audited more state agencies than any other governor. We've got the largest savings account in state history. I have lower taxes. I'm trying to get a grocery tax done for Oklahomans, which is really a regressive tax. People on fixed incomes or on the lower that have a lower income spend more of their money on groceries than people in the higher income. But if there's something going on, report it to the district attorney, report it to the attorney general's office. I will hold every vendor accountable, every state agency, as long as I'm governor.
And again, Susan Godot doing a great job with all of those interviews.